So hi everybody, this is Michael Butterman, music director of the Boulder Philharmonic Orchestra, and I'm so pleased today to be joined by my friends Greg Anderson and Elizabeth Joy Rowe, who together are Anderson and Rowe, the fantastic piano duo that has thrilled audiences in Boulder a couple of times now, most recently back in January. In fact, that was one of the last concerts that we got to perform together as an orchestra. There was just only one after that before the pandemic shut everything down. So it's great to see you guys, first of all. And appreciate you taking some time. We're going to share one of your performances from January with our audience in just a moment. Let me just start by asking you where you are and how you're doing.
Thanks for having us, Michael. I am in New York City, which was sort of in the eye of the storm, but it's been great to sort of be at home and sheltering in place, and I'm still being very strict about abiding by those guidelines, and thankful to have my quarantine companion, which is the piano over there.
And your husband.
That's true, yeah, not to mention him.
I'm currently on the West Coast at home, and it's been a very interesting time to not be traveling, since that's kind of the usual life that we lead. But it's been lovely to be here with my husband. He is an emergency doctor, so the pandemic has hit him in the exact opposite way it's hit Liz and me, in that he's working harder than ever.
Sure.
He has a lot of shifts, and he also is a researcher of public health policy, so he's been researching the pandemic as well. So it's just pandemic all day, all night in this household.
Wow, well, that is fascinating. I mean, first of all, that's such important work that he is doing. Please tell him how grateful the whole world is for the work that he's doing. But to have a window into that you do, that must really be rather fascinating. I'm sure. The obvious thing that I'm taking from this is that you guys aren't together, so you're probably not doing a lot of concertizing, and you're not doing a lot of practicing, or maybe even developing of new repertoire, or are you?
Well, surprisingly, we have been super busy and super productive. When the lockdown started in March, we were actually on the road and had canceled concerts happen literally that weekend. And so we had to split apart. But since then, we have released a new music video based on our cover of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. And that felt really pertinent to this time. And we have also done some sort of quarantine style projects as well. Greg will talk about the thing that we're working on currently, but another ongoing endeavor has been these weekly Facebook Live chats that we have called 2 Piano Tuesday. Please join us at 6 p.m. Eastern. And it's just a way of us to engage with our fans and to talk about all sorts of subjects that relate to the piano duo experience. But currently, we have been really focused on this one endeavor.
Yeah, we had 2 concerts in Portland that were postponed till August, and now those had to be canceled as well. But they decided to do them virtually, and we're trying our best to create a virtual performance from opposite coasts. And it seems like a stretch, but actually it's been really creatively rewarding. We're doing as much as we can to incorporate our fans and the community in Portland. So we have some thespians joining us for some narrated pieces. We have a competition for a young pianist to join us in a music video. We have a piece written for unlimited number of pianists, and so we're hoping to get approximately 50 pianists involved in that performance. We're going to do some solos, and then we've written some pieces specific to the pandemic. We just have been currently recording a version we made of Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto that's been mashed up with the Celine Dion song All by Myself.
Perfect.
I think constraints kind of force you to think about things differently, and sometimes there's a creative reward in all of that, and I think that's what we've been trying to uncover.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the two of you obviously have been at the forefront of involving your fans in an interactive way and staying connected with them through digital technology for really, I think, probably your whole careers. Now the rest of us who are in this classical music business have had to try to find ways to do that much better than we had been. So in a way, I suppose for the two of you, it's in a way just kind of an extension of the work that you had been doing, but you're finding ways to customize it, I suppose, to these times. You were talking about something, a piece that you had involved or that you were working on. Hope I'm not divulging any secrets, but that was involved in the fact that there's latency and involved in any of these. So for people that don't know, whenever you are trying to perform something simultaneously via Skype or Zoom or what have you, it really just can't be done because there is a very slight delay. If we all started singing Happy Birthday right now, it would be a disaster within a second. So
we couldn't even do a round of it.
Right, exactly. So you're finding a way to embrace that latency then?
We have a piece that sort of uses that to our advantage. So it's almost this dueling call and response, fun improvisatory thing where it's like I'm playing something and then Greg plays something, and so we're essentially in a dialogue that doesn't require us to play in sync.
Got it.
And then we pre-record some of these premiered pieces, like the Rock On and Off, Eric, Carmen, all by myself mashup. We have to one of us records the part first, and then the other person essentially just accompanies them while listening to the playback.
Right.
That's actually recorded at the same time if we want it to be synced.
Right. And that's a little tricky though, because normally when you're sitting next to each other on adjacent piano benches, or even if you're looking at each other across the way on two pianos, you have all kinds of cues that you can give each other, breathing and verbal, visual cues and so on. You have to, when you're doing it this way, of course, I don't have to tell you, you have to just kind of zen it, right? You just have to kind of.
You're absolutely right. That was the revelation that we had. I mean, obviously it goes without saying that, when you're playing with someone, there's a lot of this energetic connection that's happening, almost this unspoken communication. And we really rely on that as a duo. And so it is this surreal out-of-body experience when it's like we're not playing exactly in the right part of the bar because we're not responding to each other in real time.
Yeah, there's so much we take for granted. I've been putting together some virtual orchestra things where you have 40 and 50 different tracks and so on. And it's amazing, even basic rhythms and so on. Everybody, if we were in the same room, it would literally, settle in within like half a second of playing. Everyone's like, oh yeah, that's how we're doing it. But but individually interpreted in different ways, there's a lot that we take for granted about making music together and how much sort of just happens on an almost instinctive level. Well, I'll tell you what, I want to talk a little bit about the piece that we're going to share. When you came to Boulder this last time, you played a couple of works inspired by French composers, Saint-Saëns and Georges Bizet, and we played Mozart 3-piano concerto. You did a version of your Ragtime alla Turca. We're going to share with listeners now the Carmen Fantasy that we played. Now, there are a lot of fantasies and suites based on the music of Bizet's opera Carmen. For flute and violin in particular that I can think of. But you, in this one, you actually draw upon some moments in the opera that I think don't appear in most of the other suites or fantasies that I'm aware of. So I mean, I think it's nice to hear some maybe of the less often heard parts of that wonderful opera. But I mean, let me just ask you this: what was the inspiration for this piece? Did it start off as a 2-piano piece and then the orchestra was added later, or was it always a piece with orchestra?
It started off as a work for 2 pianos, and we were very inspired by the overall dramatic arc to the opera itself, and its tragedy and its romance. I mean, there's just so many passions going on in that opera. We didn't necessarily want to end with the death, so we kind of tacked on a party scene there at the end of the the fantasy. But for the most part, like, it's that emotional crux about 3/4 of the way through that, like, it's all about Carmen's the tragedy of her love and demise, and she's just such a potent heroine and a saucy minx, as we like to say. But we also liked the idea of the two of us being able to, like, embody the different characters, whether it be Carmen herself or her 2 love interests. So we, as a duo, can almost feel like we're acting out these roles throughout the fantasy. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
lovely to be able to add the orchestra into the fold because it's almost like a yet another character, but it also really does a lot to kind of support the melodies.
And in the true spirit of a paraphrase in the tradition of composers like Liszt, we sort of had to handpick our favorites because that opera is like jam-packed with amazing melodies and arias. So we always like to refer to it as almost like this Carmen thriller where you get the greatest hits.
Yeah, the highlights. Yeah, absolutely. Is there a difference in the piano parts between the version that you play just as a duo and the version that you play when the orchestra is also involved?
Definitely throughout, I mean, we cut some of our parts from the duo to give the orchestra a more of a leading role throughout. And then we added additional material for the orchestra, both textural and melodic.
Right. So that's interesting because I'm sure you play the two piano version much more probably than you do the version with orchestra just because there's more opportunities to do so. Along those lines, do you ever switch roles, piano one, piano two, in these pieces that you play all the time? Or I'm always, on this piece, I'm always piano one, I'm always piano two, that sort of thing?
We haven't done that yet. People always ask us that, and I think it's because of the breadth of our repertoire. Most of the time when we're on the road, we're juggling various recital programs alongside multiple concertos. Like when we came to play with your orchestra, we had a whole series of piano orchestral works. So there's just kind of a lot to absorb, and there's so much also that we want to keep learning and arranging in the future. And so we sort of are, I don't know, it's like a really comfortable sweater. Like you just sort of, you almost get even cozier with it the more that you play it. So maybe one day, I don't know, if we want to spice it up in 10 years, I'll take your part, Greg.
I don't want to learn your part. I mean, it's ridiculously difficult, and both parts are, but I put so much time into learning my part that I think it would be really frustrating to start over.
Yeah, you can't really sight read it. It's too complicated.
No.
Yeah. I believe that. But Greg, I mean, this is your arranger, right? You have only yourself to blame for the technical demands, I'm guessing.
Only ourselves to blame.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly effective piece, especially I think when the orchestra is a part of it. Just adds to the energy and to the excitement. You are very graciously going to do an event for our patrons, an event of note that is going to be shown on the 29th, if I'm not mistaken, Wednesday the 29th. Tell us a little bit about, but you're not going to be obviously in the same place when you're doing that. So what do you have in mind? What are you going to be sharing with us at that event?
We're going to be sharing two of our main passions. One of them is music videos. We have over 50 music videos on YouTube, and that has been one of the defining features of our career and collaboration. So we're going to share 3 seminal music videos from different periods of our career. And we're going to accompany them with Greg's specialty, and that is mixology. So I'll let Greg talk about the cocktails.
Okay, we have 2 different cocktails with recipes that I believe will be sent out to these patrons to enjoy during the meeting, so we can somehow feel a little more connected, even though obviously we're virtually separated. But I think what are the 2 drinks, Liz? We have a basil paloma, which is like a drink that is Mexican in origin, but it's like really fizzy. It's great for summertime. And we crafted a new old fashioned, and that we did just because the 2 of us do that all the time. We take something technically that's old fashioned and we make it new. It's one of our passions.
Yeah, of course. I love that. And I know that a lot of times you are sort of curating a cocktail experience that matches whatever music.
Yeah, we call it musical mixology.
Absolutely. I think that's a fantastic way to go. And one that we are probably not allowed to do in Macky Auditorium. So this is the perfect set of people. They're in the privacy of their own homes or yards or whatever it is. Absolutely.
Lean into our current reality. Everybody.
I mean, come on, folks. You got to make lemonade when you have the lemons, or maybe a lemon martini or something. So it's just been great to see you, even remotely like this. I hope we can get you back to Boulder very soon in the flesh, as it were. But we're really glad that you're going to be joining us virtually here at the end of the month. So we will look forward to that, and we'll look forward to the performance of the Carmen Fantasy that is going to be following this video. So Greg, Liz, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much. We love y'all in Boulder, and we can't wait.
Thank you.
Thanks.